Hey, what's going on, everyone? Happy 2025. I think this is the first live stream here on Big Discussions 76 for 2025. So it's the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Official holiday. It's also Inauguration Day 2025. Maybe I shouldn't have gone live when the Orange Man is making his rounds. He just got sworn into office. What was it, 2.5 hours ago? Him and JD Vance, and he's at a rally right now. Not a rally. He's doing the luncheon right now, and I think he's going to sign all of the executive orders right now. So maybe I should stay glued to my TV regarding that, so I could see, so I can stay up to date on everything. But I was advised, I was given some choice words last night. Well, someone said, well, I'm not going to watch it. We're not going to watch it. You shouldn't watch the inauguration for that fake president. And I thought about trolling the person and sending them a picture of President Trump taking the oath of office, just to be a jerk, just for the sake of it. Though this person did send me something 2 weeks ago that I didn't want, some unsolicited advice. So maybe they deserved to get trolled, but I didn't do it. Anyway, y'all Borgin has left this proactive comment. Abdul Gaines, go Bills. Are you happy with last night's outcome? Let me know. I think you've dropped off the our network momentarily because you haven't said anything recently. But how's it going? Let me know what you think about the outcome, and I'm sure you're getting ready for tonight's game between Notre Dame and the Ohio State University. T. Riddler, thank you for stopping through, and thank you for pulling my coat regarding the sound quality of my Crimson Cure upload. Appreciate that. You never want to hear that something's wrong with your video or one of your uploads, but fortunately, it was still early enough. Those didn't get a lot of viewership, so I was able to take that down and fix it and re-upload it. Abdul Gain says, "Up, see, I knew it. My phone will be back on, functioning soon. Lions Super Bowl window is closed. The Bills is wide open." Yeah, so they have it's a Michael Jordan Detroit Pistons thing now. Can the Bills, Bulls and Bills, can the Bills get the monkey off their back and get over the hump next Wednesday? Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. Oh, T. Riddlers with some trash talk. He says the Bills got lucky and with that Andrews drop. Good looking KC. Well, T. Riddler also, let's see, Lamar fumbled the ball. Lamar threw a pick. So that's 2. And then Andrews fumbled the ball. That's 3 turnovers on the road. And Baltimore was still, I guess to your credit, they were still in position to win the game, though it's hard to overcome 3 turnovers on the road. It's hard to overcome 3 turnovers on the road. All right. We're not here to talk football. We're here to talk a little bit of history and current events. Okay, so today is Dr. King Day. Let me make sure I'm live here. Yep, I'm live. Today is Dr. King Day. I just wanted to do something really, really quickly about Dr. King Day. It's my day off, and I want to relax a little bit. There are, as a content creator and a business owner, there are always things to do. But there's something specific I wanted to say about Dr. King Day. I'm not going to play an official intro today. I think I do need to make some updates to the channel. I'm just making sure this is booting up correctly. Yep, there's my ad. I want all my AdSense. I just wanted to I do need to make some updates to the channel. So for now, I will just show my logo. Everybody, this is Big Discussions 76, my original channel. There are several. Please like, share, and subscribe, and also consider, if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. So I started the year off with a little bit of literature. I read a passage from Kendra Davis's, also known as The Crimson Cure. I read a passage from her book. Oh, I don't have it. Oh no, it's right here. Her book, Reclaiming the Black Feminine, The Lies of Feminism and the Road to Recovery. So most of you all know that I am a published author. I published my book. The Engineers of Western New York Basketball Story, is now available on Amazon in the ebook, hardcover, and paperback editions. Pretty soon I will be selling signed copies on my own store. But I'm saying this to say that I think I kind of want to, in addition to some of the things that I've been doing, I've had Dr. Tiasan Johnson on. He's a published author now with a specific focus. But I want to shift a little bit more towards the writer space and the author space. I'm not going to abandon the things I was doing completely, but I think, and I need to check my analytics, but I think that probably most of my subscribers are male. So some of you are probably wondering why are you reading us a passage from Crimson Cure's book, from Kendra's book? By the way, Kendra didn't ask me to do that, but I think part of my brand, in addition to writing and capturing what's happening in society and the world right now here, is just talking about what's going on, telling the truth about what's going on. And I thought that Kendra made some very, very important points in this book. And I think the basic question she's asking is, at least in the Black community, has feminism lied to the majority of our women, especially the younger ones, post civil rights, post the baby boom? Has feminism destroyed the Black community? Okay. And not a lot of people are talking about that. I mean, they're talking about Donald Trump. They're talking about, the orange man and abortion rights and the women's right to choose. And, there's so many things that people are talking about, but that question within the Black community is not asked enough. Did feminism destroy our families, and has it kind of permanently separated the genders? So I think that that's a current event. That's an important thing to consider. That's an important dynamic that's going on for us post baby boomer individuals. So that's why I read that passage. Some of you appreciated it, some did not, but that's why I read that passage. And if you have young girls, young women in your circle, this is a book I highly recommend. You should, so that they can make the choices for themselves. This is a book that I think you should spread around in your social network. I think most of my audience is Black here at this point. So anyway, so now that that's out of the way, my brand, talking about what's happening in its entirety, telling the truth about what's going on. And that's regarding, the presidential politics, the border, energy, world events, but also things that are happening in our own community and with our own race. I think that it's important to tell the truth. I think it's important to be transparent. I think it's important to give context for everything. Even someone like Kevin Samuels, whose name keeps coming up, and Black History Month is coming up soon. So I think I'm going to do something on him again in greater detail than I did for the previous year. It's important to tell the truth about what's going on and what the actual issues are, because we get caught up in hating the people and disliking the people and focusing on the individuals themselves versus the context of what was going on and what that person was trying to solve. Okay. I'm probably not going to say much more about Inauguration Day. The White House is now orange again. So prices are still elevated. There's been a ceasefire in Israel, Palestine. So now we just have to wait and see what happens. But today is also Dr. King Day. It's the official holiday for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., though his actual birthday was on January 15th, which is interesting because most of us think about it in terms of being today on January 20th. Most of us have the day off, but his actual birthday was on January 15th. So I'm going to try not to make this live stream long. I want to relax for the rest of the day, but I'm going to, in order to set up what I want to say about Dr. King, I'm going to show this. And since today's Inauguration Day, I think this is a good jump off for this. So over the holiday, over Christmas, I found myself watching documentaries on the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Okay, Jack Kennedy. John F. Kennedy. I know sometimes they called him Jack. I don't know why they called him Jack. But this is an iconic rug / knitting that I saw as a youngster over one of my great aunt's house. One of my grandmother's sisters. She had this picture up on her wall when you walked into her east side of Buffalo house. And so that's Robert F. Kennedy. That's Dr. Martin Luther King there. And that's John F. Kennedy Jr. Not John F. Kennedy Jr. John F. Kennedy. Okay. The 37th president of the United States, I believe. It's 37th or 35th. Anyway, all three of these men were assassinated. They were shot by somebody. Somebody wanted each of these three men out of the way. And I remember being a youngster and asking my mother, "Well, Mom, who are those three guys? Why does my Aunt Rosemary have those men up on the wall?" And she said, "Well, the one that's Bobby Kennedy, that's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and that's former President John F. Kennedy." And then as I got older, I started to learn more about what happened with those gentlemen and what they were doing and what their lives were about. And you hear things as a child, but you don't start to appreciate things, and you don't start to get the truth until you get older. So all three men were shot and murdered and assassinated. The YouTube algorithm, I found myself over the Christmas holiday watching video after video after video on the John F. Kennedy assassination. And I can see now why that is so fascinating to people, because you wonder, he was a relatively young president, no homo. He was a very handsome man, a very beautiful family. And, you wonder why someone would get picked off like that. They shot him. I think one of the bullets went through his neck, and another bullet hit the back of his head and blew the back of his head off. And his wife, literally, Jacqueline Kennedy, literally had some of his brains there. So he died instantly. But you wonder, what was happening? Why would someone assassinate John F. Kennedy in such a brutal way? What warranted him being killed like that? You do the research, you find out, and then you start to learn about all the things that were going on: the Bay of Pigs, the Cuban Missile Crisis, ties to the mafia, looking to advance civil rights. So it could have been anything, but you start to hear about who may have been behind it. Okay, so same thing happened with Malcolm X. The same thing happened with Dr. King. The same thing happened with Bobby Kennedy. But today we're going to talk about Dr. King, and I'm going to highlight two videos, one of which I'm gonna cover up because I don't think DJ Vlad copyrights his stuff. So I want my AdSense. I don't want to get stricken here. You guys keep letting me know what you think there in the chat. Let me know what you think. Do you have any thoughts on this? Do you even care? Do you care about history? Do you care about what Dr. King's true legacy is? But I'm going to show a blog post that I just updated about Dr. King. But before I do that, we're going to start with some humor. I'm still on X, and a lot of people have a lot of people abandoned X when Elon Musk took it over. But there's some things you see, and apparently, Dr. King was from Atlanta, and in multiple years, I've seen flyers like this circulated on X. Someone in Atlanta, someone in our southern cities, and just cities in general, they're making flyers like this. Okay, so you see there that this says sacred, he scared the beloved pulse. Oh, well, I'm not going to read that. But you see there that someone created a club flyer here, superimposing Dr. King's head on some guy's body, and then superimposing Rosa Parks' body on a thought right there. And I think it's funny to look at, but it's also disrespectful. And I think it shows, I don't know, have the younger generations, do they have any respect for our civil rights icons and our historical figures? When you look at stuff like that, because I think some things are sacred. I'm going to show it one more time. T. Riddler said, "That's wild." The younger generations, have they become so desensitized and separated from history that they can take Dr. King and Rosa Parks' likeness and put them on flyers like this? Okay. Adventures in social media. So I updated this blog post to, market my book, but also to just to update it. This is in the description box below. Malcolm Gladwell says we should always be updating and improving our work. So this one is entitled Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Final Vision and Dr. Claud Anderson's Prophecies. So one of Dr. King's last thoughts was that he had integrated his people into a burning house. So one of the things that after the signing of the Civil Rights Bill, which we know now, and you have to hang out in the YouTube streets in places like the Black Manosphere to really understand. Let me pull the picture up for you guys. Please smash that like button if you haven't. And this gets to the accurate telling of history and what the long-term ramifications of things are. It's not until you hang out in spaces like the Black Manosphere that you start to learn that what the actual outcomes of the civil rights movement were, how power was usurped, how certain groups were empowered, how certain genders were empowered. And it's not until you hang out in the YouTube streets that you start to see and hear about what some of the true outcomes of some of these things were. So for most of my childhood, all we heard about was the I Have a Dream speech and Dr. King wanting white girls and black boys and kids of all ages to be able to hold hands together and take part in the American dream, and and that everybody's created equal, all that stuff. All you heard about was the fluffy stuff concerning Dr. Martin Luther King, but it wasn't all fluffy. Okay. And that was not what he was thinking about. I mean, he may have been thinking about social integration when he died, but his thoughts had shifted to other things. So he was very critical of the Vietnam War. That led to him being attacked. But he was also starting to think about economics. So this piece, I'm going to bring it back up. This piece talks about what he was thinking about before he was assassinated. All right. And it also starts to tie in Dr. Claud Anderson and Powernomics, because I think one of the things Dr. King realized before he was assassinated was that the social integration, the dream, the I Have a Dream speech, all of that, the Voting Rights Act, which is used to impart fear on us as Black people, during election cycles, I think he came to the realization that all of that is meaningless without economic empowerment. So towards the end of his life, before he was assassinated, he was giving a lot of thought to economic empowerment and how do I make my people financially whole? And if they're not financially whole, then all of these laws can be circumvented and they're meaningless. Okay. So that's what that essay is about. That essay is in the description box. There are 3 videos embedded by Dr. Claud Anderson. For those of you who don't know who Dr. Claud Anderson is, Dr. Claud Anderson wrote Powernomics. Okay. And so in that essay, I married what Dr. King was thinking about when he got assassinated with some of Dr. Claud Anderson's teachings and philosophies. And again, the accurate telling of history, telling what's going on, current events, being transparent about all voices. Okay. Dr. Claud Anderson's been around talking about powernomics and buffer classes and replacement classes and immigrants and all of these things, his 5 financial floors. He's been talking about these things since the 60s and the 70s. And there's even videos of him in the 90s talking about this stuff. But the mainstream media complex has basically turned down the volume on him. Okay. So I didn't know who this was until the 2010s. And that was due to Dr. Boyce Watkins. So Dr. Boyce Watkins gets a lot of criticism, but he has been very, very adamant about alerting us to Dr. Claud Anderson before he becomes an elder. So messaging is intentionally amplified for us, and other aspects are intentionally muted so we don't know. And I think there's a vested interest in keeping Black people economically destitute. There's probably an incentive and an interest in keeping Black men and Black women separated. Despite what people think, that's something that Kevin Samuels was interested in. I may lose people when I mention that name, but if you don't like it, that's too bad. All right. I'm going to play 2 videos here. Again, that blog post is below in the description box. Cynical Optimist, thank you for stopping through. T. Riddler says, that's wild. Let's see. Roddy, the cloud engineer. Okay, you're a STEM guy. I'm not so familiar with you, but thank you for being here. Thank you for stopping through. What T. Riddler said was wild was this club flyer here. Okay, so quickly, I'm going to show this video of Dr. King talking about, so people watching this know I'm not just blowing smoke and hot air. He actually is on record coming to the realization that it's the economy, stupid. It's money, it's economics. And we're coming to Washington to get our check. That was never talked about when I was a youngster. That was never talked about in our churches, our Black History Month programs, at my HBCU. That was never talked about. Okay. But he came to the realization that, hey, all these other ethnic groups have gotten this help. They've gotten the Homestead Act. They've gotten land grants. They've gotten all these other benefits, but we haven't gotten them. And we're coming to Washington. We're coming to Washington to get ours. Professor Black Ops, cybersecurity for the people. Thank you for stopping through, everybody. Please smash that like button. And J3 says, nice shirt, Doc. Thank you, J3. I think I'm seeing rumors that they're going to recast T'Challa, and it sounds like Marvel Disney has their eyes on Aldous Hodge. So look out for that. Shout out to Artisan MC. Okay. We're coming to get our check. Please smash that like button if you haven't. Money Motion, good to see you again. Thank you for stopping through. And everybody, spread this, share this. I mean, not my video per se. It would help if you do, but an accurate depiction of history. I remember I remember in grade school at Campus West in Buffalo, we all had to learn a song called, it went something to the effect of, Dr. Martin Luther King was a man with a dream. Okay, how'd it go? Dr. Martin Luther King was a man with a dream. He lived for world peace. Dr. Martin Luther King was a man with a dream. He lived for world peace. And, X, Y, and Z, he dreamed that people would join hands and raise them for harmony. Something like that, something to that effect. But it was all about the happy, happy, joy, joy, touchy, feel good, feel warm and fuzzy thing. It had nothing to do with economics. It had nothing to do with we're coming to Washington to get our check. Okay, this is a short video. I don't think YouTube is going to strike me for this one, but I think DJ Vlad's will. Hold on. And again, we're only told certain things. And anyway, we're coming to get our check. Fair use.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money, expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with. And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
All right, we're coming to Washington to get our check. So everybody, that is, well, that's a form of the reparations argument right there. We're owed something. We're owed some economic enrichment and some economic assistance as well. We're coming to get ours. So right when he was assassinated, he was working on the Poor People's Campaign. He was criticizing the Vietnam War, but he was also saying, look, black people need to be made financially whole as well, as opposed to this pulling us up by our bootstraps thing. The rich, the old guard, old money, black people, discussed in Lawrence Otis Graham's Our Kind of People, this wasn't as much of a concern for them because they were old guard, old money black people. But for everybody else, yeah, everybody else could have used some land. Everybody else could have used some economic stimulus. Okay. But the problem is, and you see that today, even just mentioning that, there's very little today. There's a lot of arguing within the race and the community about whether or not to get them. But yeah, I could see the political establishment thinking about the price tag on something like that, causing alarm, even though economic reparations were given to other people. Okay, let's listen to that one more time, and then we're going to listen to the Judge Joe Brown video about how Dr. King was assassinated, because I told you guys that I started watching the John F. Kennedy Jr. assassination. Why do I keep saying John F. Kennedy Jr.? He wasn't a junior. The John F. Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy assassination videos. I started watching a lot of those over the Christmas holiday. But I also, years ago, I heard Judge Joe Brown give an account as to how Dr. King was assassinated, and it's very grisly. If anybody wants to make a donation to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal are here. You can also leave a super chat or a super thanks on the way back, on the playback, not the way back, on the playback. And please keep letting me know what you think in the chat yourselves. Abdul Gaines says, this is my all-time favorite MLK video. Abdul in Buffalo, we're both from Buffalo. Did you hear anything about this part of Dr. King's legacy? Did you hear anything about this when you were a youngster? We never talked about this when I was a youngster growing up in Buffalo. Okay. So when I heard this, I was like, wow, he was thinking about this. And you almost never hear our Black politicians talk about this in a meaningful way. We're coming to Washington to get our check. Fair use. Fair use.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with, and this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
That sounds very, very different from the I have a dream speech, doesn't it? It sounds very, very different than the I had a dream that black boys and white girls and kids of all races will hold hands and, you know, we'll sing the Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we're free at last. He looked upset in that video. So Abdul Gaines says, yes, I did. My family and I had discussions about this period in the life of MLK as a teenager. Well, Abdul, you were one of the fortunate ones because in my family, we never talked about that. And that's not blaming my folks, but they probably didn't know. The same thing goes for the churches I attended in Buffalo. No one ever talked about this. And that gets to another point. I wrote another essay about this. Whose job is it to teach Black history? Is it the school's job? Or is it the people, that particular ethnic group and community and race, is it their job? I think it's our job to teach our own history to our own people and our young people. Number one, there's only so much time in a school year. But number two, it's our culture. And we have a vested interest in making sure everything is communicated the way that it actually happened. I mean, we need to know that there were Black slave owners, and we need to know that there were African tribes that sold other African tribes to the slave traders. Okay, once you know that, then you know, okay, well, from the beginning of time, not all Black people were with each other. We fought amongst each other. We traded each other. We sold each other. I'm not saying it's right, but that's what happened. And I think it's important to have a firm understanding of what actually happened. Okay. Rade, the cloud engineer. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. If I mispronounced it, please forgive me. He says, I'm 25 from New York. I never heard anything about this. Okay. I never heard anything about this. All right. And so the other important aspect of this is, you might think, these things have been going on for generations. So certain families, certain ethnic groups have a bit of a head start on others. So you might think, okay, well, they're just naturally more industrious. They're just naturally smarter. Now, culturally, some groups do value some things more than others. But if you look at everything and you line everything up in this instance, you can see, okay, well, some ethnic groups and some families, they were able to take advantage of various economic stimuli throughout history, which is why their families and their communities, which is in part why their families and their communities are outperforming others 30 to 40 years later. Okay. A lot of these things were put in motion years ago. Okay. Some people are offended by Judge Joe Brown and those comments he made about Memphis and the female Memphis mayor and the misogyny. A lot of folks don't like him because of his ornery way of speaking. But Judge Joe Brown spits a lot of facts. So if this offends you, you're welcome to leave. If someone doesn't like Judge Joe Brown and you're watching my content and you don't like it, too bad. You can leave. He gave a very, very riveting account of Dr. King's death. Okay. And this is from DJ Vlad. So I'm gonna cover the screen when I play this, because I think DJ Vlad is really, really people who normally play his content, you get some sort of strike. So I'm gonna overlay a picture of Dr. King as I play this. But I think one of my mother's guy friends shared with me years ago that Dr. King, when he was assassinated, the bullet entered his face. Judge Joe Brown is going to give a very riveting discussion of what happened to the late Dr. King. And as you think about what he was focused on, and as you wonder, you think about the deaths of some of these individuals in history, what was so important? Why was it so important to assassinate this person? You have to take a look at what they were involved in and what they were interested in at that time. Okay. So again, he was interested in economic rights and economic empowerment for Black people. Guys, give me 1 second here while I cue this up. You guys let me know what you think there in the chat. Give me 1 second. Or several. Okay, I'm gonna show it. Well, the link is below in case you guys want to see it yourselves. So I'm not gonna play the entire video, but I'm gonna play the account, the forensics of the assassination. And as a scientist, it's very fascinating to me, the physics of a bullet, of a sniper rifle and a bullet. And it's very riveting to hear about what the bullet did when it entered his body and how it traveled and severed an artery. But Judge Joe Brown makes the case that this was not one man, and there were highly skilled shooters behind this. And the same thing is postulated for JFK's death. A similar thing is postulated for Bobby Kennedy's death. So a lot of these deaths, particularly in the 60s, you really have to wonder, and a lot of people think that these were highly orchestrated and planned out by some people in really high up places. All right. Please smash that like button if you haven't. I am going to overlay this so I don't get a strike. There's Judge Joe Brown. If Judge Joe Brown offends you, well, it is what it is. All right. I'm still going to say it. Fair use.
Well, for me, that was a small impact. I wound up being the last judge hearing the James Earl Ray matter. Did he, in fact, assassinate Dr. Martin Luther King? And had he not died and his local attorney not died in close succession, it would have been my finding that he was not the gunman. That Remington 760 Game Master they've got in the Civil Rights Museum is not the murder weapon. It's not even close. And it was a two-man hit team that killed him from the fire station dormitory.
No offense, but if you're paying more than $30 per month on car insurance, you're getting ripped off.
It wasn't the fly.
Can you guys hear that? Give me a 1 in the chat. Say yes. We can hear it. Can you hear that? Sometimes I play things and someone says, Dr. Dunbar, we can't hear it. No sound. Can you guys hear that? Let me know. All right. Thank you, Rade. Let's go back.
Killed him from the fire station dormitory. It wasn't the flop house and it wasn't in those bushes. So, yeah, I got into the deep details of Dr. King, and that 3 or 4 year period, that case was kicking around in front of me.
So you're saying that the James Earl Ray did not kill Martin Luther King?
No, he didn't kill.
Even though most people, well, he was convicted for it, right?
He didn't kill him. It's interesting, the homicide file for the Memphis Police Department reaches the same conclusion back in 1968.
Okay, so the number one, okay, so the clear and the transparent communication of history. He said James Earl Ray didn't kill him. All my life growing up, all I heard about was James Earl Ray. This redneck Southerner shot Dr. King. It was a one-man job. Judge Joe Brown said it was a two-man job. And apparently James Earl Ray was cleared years ago. So lies, once they're told, they can keep going and going and going and going and going. And the people living on may be none the wiser.
They entered their file in protest to the DA's office. Their conclusion was Ray is not the gunman. He was not even in Memphis that day. We know conclusively where he was.
So why do you think he got convicted for the murder?
Well, he didn't get convicted. He pled guilty. You have to understand, though, the news media puts it out as he was the self-confessed killer of King. That's not true. All through the transcripts, the entirety of the record, he never confessed, and often he said, I never said I killed King. I didn't kill him. I'm pleading cause of Alford. That's ALFORD. It's a moderately old U.S. Supreme Court case, and it says, even if you are not actually guilty and you are pristinely innocent, you may plead guilty to the charge if you think that doing so is in your best interest under all of the circumstances as you know them to be, and you're doing so freely, voluntarily, understandingly, knowingly, advisedly, and intelligently. So Ray had gone through all of these and had lost But there was something that came up. Modern scientific methodology.
So I'm trying to break this up, even though I have the overlay for you all out there. So here is when he gets into the actual forensics of the assassination. Very, very brutal. It's a very, very, yeah, no one should have to die like this.
Took away one further necessary element. All of these things had to be there, and the state had to have a reasonable factual basis upon which to proceed otherwise. The thing the state relied upon was the rifle, but modern scientific methodology excluded that rifle from being the murder weapon. The bullet they pull out of King's body has a rate of rifling twist of 1 turn in every 11 and a quarter inches. The rifle that Ray had a rate of rifling meter NATO caliber weapon with a special stainless steel barrel, a 3-9 telescopic sight modified by a company known as Leatherwood. It was a Redfield sight, and they used special subsonic ammunition with a suppressor on the end to reduce the velocity of the bullet to below supersonic to confuse the sound signature. The shot came from the dormitory in the fire station through a window that had been slightly parted. They were several feet inside. It was a 2-man team, a spotter and a shooter. That's what he got killed by. If you shoot somebody at that closer range, which was about 50, 60 yards, with a 30 caliber rifle anywhere in the torso, if the individual is standing next to an emergency room, it's a non-survivable wound. But what they did is they took a headshot they almost missed because the bullet was reduced in velocity. It hit King on the right cheek, took out some molars, wrecked his tongue, came out between his jaws, left the body, hit his clavicle, ricocheted under the skin that covered the clavicle, nicked his carotid artery, went over his right shoulder, down across the back, and lodged between the left scapula and his back skin. And the bullet never penetrated his thorax. Now that sounds a little weird, but it's not uncommon. So he bled out from the nicked carotid artery, and they almost missed the shot.
Okay, let me come back to you guys here. That's all I'm going to play, guys. That link is below in the description box. If you want to watch that some more and digest it all, I've heard that several times, but this is my first time hearing that it went in, destroyed his molars. What do you say? Severed his tongue, went out of his, left his jaw, went down into his clavicle, and then it went back up. I didn't know a bullet could do that. I thought it was a straight shot. It lodged in you or went through you. But isn't that pretty gruesome? Isn't that pretty grisly? And it's a tough way to die. And when I listened to that there were 2 shooters. They were using state-of-the-art equipment. Okay. And when you hear about the physics of what happened and the forensics of what happened, you wonder and you think, okay, what was so critical that they had to assassinate him? And I think, as with most things in this country, it all goes back to economics. It all goes back to economics, the economic empowerment of Black people. And I think that, well, even, it was theorized that that was one of the reasons that Nipsey Hussle was taken down, because he was trying to economically empower and educate Black people. So something happens when you try to empower Black people in this country and make them economically whole and viable. Please smash that like button if you haven't. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Do any of you all have any thoughts or comments on this, on any of this? I would play that that Judge Joe Brown footage again, but it was long, and you guys were, whoever's watching, you were patient enough to sit and watch that and listen. Do you all have any more thoughts and comments on any of this? And if you don't, that's okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to show the most important thing is that is what he was thinking about before he died, and when he was working on before he died. He'd already secured the Civil Rights Bill and the Voting Rights Act and those pieces of legislation, but his gaze had focused on something else, which is what I think precipitated the need to assassinate him. So we're going to take one more look at that, and then I'll wrap the stream up because it's my day off and I want to relax a little bit. I still do plan on having guests. Some of the guests that you all like come to the channel in 2025. But unfortunately, I don't have guests every single week. All right. So I'm going to end with this. And you guys, let me know what you think about any of this. And if you don't have any thoughts, well, that's okay. Sometimes you don't have any thoughts. Please smash that like button if you haven't. We're coming to get our check.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with, and this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
That's why they assassinated him. That's why they took him out right there. But when you guys think about, you notice he was talking about agriculture and farming and land grant institutions. Okay, so before the Industrial Revolution, before, prior to the World War II era, before the automobile, this was an agrarian society. So we farmed, we grew things, we still do to some degree now, but much of the population lives in cities. You see that in every presidential election. Most people live in cities, and you have smaller numbers who live in flyover country, the red states. So the government gave a lot of money to support those families, those farmers of European descent, and to set up those land grant institutions. Let me fact check myself just so I'm speaking correctly on land grant institutions. I just want this to make sense to everybody. Let's see. Land grant universities. So Texas A&M. A&M stands for agricultural and mechanical. Texas A&M. Michigan State. That was a land grant, I believe. What was the other one? There were some other ones that were on the tip of my tongue. Texas A&M. I can't think of the other land grant schools. They're probably here. Okay, so okay. Land grant. Well, according to the AI, this is the significance of land grant universities. A land grant university is a college or university in the United States that receives federal and state funds to provide practical education. The term land grant comes from the Memorial Acts of 1862 and 1890, which gave states federally controlled land to establish public colleges. Okay. I'm going to read it a little bit further down. Right. So all of your A&M universities, many of your state schools, the 19 land grant universities designated under the Morrill Act of 1890 are Alabama A&M University, Alcorn State, Central State University, Delaware State. So some of these are HBCUs. Florida A&M University, Fort Valley State University, Kentucky State University, Langston University, Lincoln University. These are all HBCUs. North Carolina A&T, Prairie View A&M, South Carolina State, Southern University, Tennessee State University, Tuskegee University, University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, University of Maryland Eastern Shore, Virginia State University, West Virginia State University. Okay, well, we're going to have to revisit this because Dr. King mentioned the land grant, and most of these are HBCUs. But I think the context in which he was talking about it was for the benefit of European settlers or settlers who were of European descent. So I have to admit that I don't know 100% the background of land grants and all of the particulars of that. But he was talking specifically about certain racial groups being propped up and economically supplemented by the federal government. So, all right, everyone. Well, I'm at an hour. I am going to wrap this up. Thank you to everyone who watched this. Okay, y'all boring. He's talking sports with Abdul Gaines. Thank you to everyone who watched this. Please let me know what you think in the comments section below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Black History Month will be here in a week and a half, so I'm going to revisit this land grant thing. But for now, T. Riddler. No, I did not. Did you attend West Virginia State University? No, I attended Johnson C. Smith University, right there. And then, as you know, the University of Michigan. That's where I attended, T. Riddler. But since and it sounds like we don't have a firm understanding of the whole land grant piece, well, I'm going to revisit that for either leading up to Black History Month or during. So look out for that. Anyhow, y'all Borgen, you must be a Baltimore Ravens fan. Anyhow, I'm going to wrap this up and attempt to enjoy the rest of my day off, everybody. Thank you for watching. The link to that essay, the link to both those videos, the link to my newsletter, the link to my book project, that is all in the description box. And with that, as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Always try to do your best. This is Big Discussions 76. Take care, and I will talk to you later. And now that the White House is orange again, be careful about political discourse with everyone out there. Just be careful. All right, everyone, take care, and I will talk to you again sometime soon. Bye-bye.